welcome back to the Second and Two podcast. I'm your host, TB. I got my co-host, producer extraordinaire, hat connoisseur, master of the lenses, my guy, Jody. What's up, Joe?
What's good, man? Why'd you skip on Uncle Tom? You don't want to give him a nice impression?
Hey,
we got
man.
the known Steelers fan, recurring guest. I mean, you're just going to miss out on that one, huh?
No, dude, I was going to let you intro him. Come on, dude. I was throwing it to you to give him the home warm welcome.
I will say, I saw when I loaded in, I was like, man, my guy's got a full setup now. He's got his own podcast or something.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, much better than last time.
No doubt. So those of you who have been listening to us for, I don't know, since the beginning, my uncle, one of the most knowledgeable fans around draft time that I've known my entire life. We had him on last year around the draft. He had some takes and they turned out to be right, so we figured we'd have him come back, drop some knowledge. But he, like I said, he's probably one of the more knowledgeable people I can talk to about the draft year in and year out. Has been working on radio, talking draft stuff, mock drafts for, I don't know, what are we talking, going on 15 years?
Oh, man, I've been doing since 2000.
So I'm sorry, I disrespected you 25 years. So, like I said, I mean, like if you can talk to anybody about the draft, there's probably no better person in my life that I know to talk draft strategy, where guys should be drafted, historical relevance, like what GMs typically take what. Like he's locked in on all of it. So appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you guys having me on. I don't come with that resume that Mitch comes with. I mean, that guy heck of a resume, but I've been doing the draft stuff since like 2000. When I lived in Phoenix, I would work with Mike Drecke, guy that works with the Arizona Cardinals, and every year he would do a mock draft, and I would just dive in so deep. It was nice to have a place to talk about it, and I always selected for the Steelers for 13 years. And, I would get my folder. We're talking dial-up internet, going back then. We don't have all the combine on TV. I'm going to Our Lads, getting their book on all the players coming out, and I'm reading up. I've got a notebook of all 32 teams, what they've added, what they've lost, who's coming for the visits, and trying to figure out what teams are doing, and they usually had a prize for the winning GM. And since we're talking DBs, I figured I'd tell you a quick mock draft from 2003. And Steelers are picking 27, and we're on the radio, and I'm talking about, what we've lost, what we've gained, who we might be looking at. And, my time comes, I got to select the player. And I ended up taking Sammy Davis, cornerback out of Texas A&M. But I told him that's not going to happen. Steelers are moving up to get Troy Polamalu. That's who they want. And, of course, after that, they asked me why. And then they asked me about some other players I could have selected. So after the mock draft is over, they call me back and they say, hey, you know what? You ended up winning best GM. You get to go to the Arizona draft party for the Cardinals. Cheerleaders are going to be there. Players are going to be there. It's going to be a back room. You can take you and 4 of your friends. All you can eat, all you can drink for Saturday when the draft was on a Saturday. So we're sitting there, and Kansas City's at 16, and they're on the board. And sure enough, the Steelers moved up from 27 to 16. They took Troy Polamalu. I'm losing my stuff. I got it right on the radio. I'm happy about that. I'm high-fiving my guys I brought with me, and I go back to sit down, and I just go, he's going to end up being the best safety in football. So I turned around, I sat in my seat, and there's Adrian Wilson, the safety from the Cardinals, staring right at me.
Just disrespect.
He just kind of gave me a look, kind of rolled his eyes and walked away. And I just thought that was a pretty good memory, seeing him. And sure enough, Troy Polamalu turned out to be,
I was going to say, you didn't just nail the pick. I think you nailed the hot take right after he was picked.
Yeah,
It was him and Ed Reed for a number of years. Like it was one of those two guys. It was whatever flavor you liked of safety. That it was one of those two guys was the best one in the league.
So what I don't bring. I'm not like your Dan Orlovsky breaking down films like you are. I leave that to you. I'm just a guy that gathers a bunch of information, trying to sort out who's going where, what's fake, what's real, and I try to get my drafts right. So I'm kind of more like a guy that has a bunch of knowledge but doesn't know shit. So just call me Tom Kiper, So
Tom Kiper.
All right, Tom Kiper, what an intro! Oh man, we are extremely lucky to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
And we're ready to talk corners today. I think way back in, January, late January, early February, just before the Super Bowl, when Joey and I were planning this and we're kind of talking and we're like, all right, hey, we want to do some different stuff this year. We want to have guests on, you were one of my calls. And I remember saying, hey, who do you want to look at this year? And the first thing this group of corners, right? So we made sure to schedule you for the corners, and that's what we're going to talk about today is this interesting group. There's a lot of different guys. It was really tough to narrow it down to 5, so we are going to be talking about 6 guys today. Jody, who are we talking about first?
Well, first off, we got Terrion Arnold out of Alabama. He's 6 foot, weighs in at 189 pounds. He's got 3 years there, played for 23 games. Has 102 tackles with 29 pass breakups. Got 6 picks in those 3 years. I guess when they throw in his way, they got 44% completion percentage on him. We got 3 touchdowns allowed on him. And he was in man coverage 30% of the time. And then I got some combine numbers from him. He did a 4.5 in the 40 with a 1.54 in his 10-yard split. 37-inch vertical, and then he did 10.9 on the broad.
Yeah, so first thing I'll say, Terrion Arnold. Number 1, Jody, you nailed the intro. Way to go on all the stats. No hiccups today. Proud of you for that.
Not yet so far.
That's an inside joke between me and Joe.
they're listening, they know. I always mess up one, but last week especially, I said some dude had 1,700 receiving yards, which was not true. He only had like 777 or something.
Yeah, so we're working on it. Work in progress. But, I think when I look at this group of corners, and we were kind of talking about it before we hopped on officially today, it's maybe not as top heavy as last year's group, with Witherspoon and Gonzalez at the top. Those two guys in most drafts would be the best corner available, I think, at least in recent memory. I don't know that we have a guy in this class that I think is as good as either one of those guys, but I think there's probably 6 guys that you could legitimately take in the first round and feel good about it, maybe 7. And, Terrion Arnold, one of the first guys that I looked at. The thing that stood about him, it's interesting. He only has 23 games, right? He really only played 2 years at Alabama. His first year as a red shirt. So he played last year and then in 2022, 2023. And coming into this past season, his teammate, Kool AId Mckinstry, had the name recognition. Obviously, his name's Kool Aid, right? But just from the play the year before, Terrion Arnold wasn't the guy that was on everyone's radar. Well, if you watched any Alabama football games this year, you knew this was the dude. He was the dude this year. Playmaker all over the field. I don't think, like I said, he was on a lot of people's radars that coming into the season, but he made his presence known, forced a total of 6 turnovers, 5 picks, and a fumble. And you got a little cut up of that here, right, against Kentucky to start off. Playing out of the slot, unreal break on the ball here to undercut that route and pick that off. Just nasty, especially with the hips already open. Really good stuff against Ole Miss. The wherewithal to track the deep ball and then kind of cut off the route, run underneath it. Didn't even have to high point that one. And then he gives you a little bit of the return here. Again, I just think first thing that jumps off with him is he's just straight up a playmaker, man. This is late in the game against Auburn, last play of the game. Obviously picks it off and then tries to pad the stats here by scoring. His coaches are probably telling him to get down right there. once again, another okay tip ball. Like he just seems to be around the ball all the time, right? He just creates plays for his team. And he was a big reason why Alabama ended up in the Rose Bowl this year with all the plays he made defensively. Again, just it felt like if you were throwing at him, it was going to be a negative play for the offense. And right there, I mean, another great play against Ole Miss. I think we got maybe one or two more here of him against this is right before the half. You know, they're throwing the Hail Mary in the Auburn game and picks it off right before the half. But like I said, just always around the ball, making a lot of plays. You know what, Tom, when you were kind of looking at him, what was the first thing that stood out for you?
I just think he's a pure cover corner. You know, you talked about Kool Aid, and it seemed to be like the number one guy coming in. So I wasn't sure if teams were just like, you know what, we're going to stay away from him. We're going to test this other guy. Dude came out with flying colors. I just love that how sticky he is in man, how physical he is against the run. I think he's a great run defender. But he is a true pure cover corner. The guy has really good ball skills. I really do like him a lot. You know, he ran the 4.5, so I was like, when I went to go look at the film, but he's really fluid and sticks to the hip, and he's just a really good corner. I was really happy when I saw his tape.
You know, the thing that you said that I think stands out to me is the physicality. I think there are corners, you know, we were talking about this before we got on too, is there's different kind of flavors of corner, I would say, right? There's kind of your finesse guys who really, they want to get picks, they want to play man, and they don't really want to do much else.
Right.
They're not interested in doing anything else, right? They're definitely not interested in tackling. And Terrion Arnold could not be more opposite from that. He's really physical at the line of scrimmage when he's in press. He's physical at the catch point. He's physical when he's tackling the ball. He's not afraid to put his hands on receivers and fight for position when the ball is in the air. You can see it. He was off screen here, but I just love how he's not afraid to put his hands on a guy, even when the ball's in the air, and being physical. Like, put the referee in a position to make, you know, and he still gets his eyes back. He still puts his hand through the ball. Like, he's not afraid to force the issue, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you saw it against those.
I was going to say, I kept thinking that he looked really grabby, real handsy, but the dude only had like 3 penalties all year. So, I mean,
he forced the issue. He said, I'm going to make you call it, like, which I respect. And I also think that's, you know, part of the way that Nick Saban and Alabama, the way they teach their DBs, they want those guys to be physical. They want to force the issue. They want to make the referee make the call. And if they're not making it, it's to your advantage to be physical, right? Yeah. And it really, that Ole Miss game, he freaking dominated those dudes. And a lot of their receivers were bigger than him, and it didn't matter. Again, another, you know, great tackle, forces the fumble, you know, near touchdown for the defense because of the playmaking there, but also the physicality at the catch point. Again, right here against Georgia in the SEC title game against Ladd McConkey, everyone's favorite sleepy receiver right now. Sticky on the hip, like you talked about, and then physical through the catch point, dude.
Yeah.
And then, like, oh, we're going to go 3rd and 1. We're going to run at him. No way, dude. Tackle for loss.
Yep.
You know, there's another one where they blitz him off the edge against Texas in that big game. I know they lost that game, but Terrion Arnold played pretty well. Blitz him off the edge. He beats that receiver inside, makes the play right now. Again, blitz him against, you know, Arkansas. He makes a big play on KJ Jefferson. So I think it says a lot that, you know, there's 3 cut-ups at the end here of him blitzing off the edge. You know, that clearly he's not a guy that's afraid to tackle and get in the mix. And then last but not least, I think maybe it comes with the territory of playing in Alabama, but to me, he's just a classic Nick Saban DB, super fantastic understanding of what they're doing schematically and where he fits within the defense, but also recognizing what the offense is trying to do and being able to play fast and see things before they happen. I think that allowed him to make a lot of the big time plays he made, whether it was the run game or the pass game. You've seen a lot of that in those first 2 cut-ups here. But he's just a really smart player, I think, that can do pretty much anything you ask him to do. Right here, he's playing in the slot against A&M, and even when he's kind of beat initially right here, mentally tough enough to get himself back in the play and not allow it to be a big catch. And that's where like you're kind of like, oh, okay, he runs 4.5, but like the catch up speed looked okay right there. Again, just really intelligent football player who's also smart, tough, physical, can do a lot of the different things that you're asking him to do. I think he's just reminds me of a lot of the better DBs that have come out of Alabama since Nick Saban's been there. There's not much else to say other than that. Like he just, my comp for him is Marlon Humphrey, another Alabama DB. I don't think that's like shocking. A player who's been with the Ravens for 6-7 years now and has done really good things in the NFL because of the pedigree he comes from. Can play in the slot, can play outside, really smart football player, really physical, definitely one of those corners that's not afraid to mix it up, and also is a playmaker. So I think that the comp was pretty good there. Similar stature, size, speed, all that good stuff. And then, like I said, I think the thing that just stands out about the two of them when I thought about the comparison was the playmaking and the IQ. Those two things were the things that reminded me of, when I looked at Terrion Arnold of Marlon Humphrey. Tom, did you have a comp for him?
Yeah, I did all my comps except for this guy because I've heard this comp 3 times, and I heard it from Daniel Jeremiah and a couple other people. Is Jalen Johnson from Chicago Bears.
That's a good one. I could see that too. That's actually a really good one. I hadn't thought about that. I think Jalen Johnson might be like a tad bigger, I want to say.
Yeah.
But no, I think the similar like characteristics of their play. This one against Derrick Henry, I love this play from Marlon Humphrey. It reminded me of the Texas play that we watched Terrion Arnold make. Joe, I'm coming to you for your comp. Let's see if you've upped your game.
I figured no. I told you I got you on the running backs. After that, I'll let you guys figure it out. That ain't me. I mean, if you want me to be honest, the only people I've seen were people we played football with. I couldn't tell you anyone about like in the league, so I'm not even gonna say them. You know what I mean?
No, I got you. But what'd you like about Terrion Arnold when you watched him?
So I had that he was good at the point of attack. I mean, we saw plenty of those on the football intelligence like segment where he's just going up using his arms. And then I liked how you guys talked about during the physicality. I use his arm to like straddle him, and then at the point of attack, he'll use the other arm to bat it down or whatever. I really like that. And then I did have written down that he locked up Ladd McConkey, so I'm glad we saw that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then
he did put the clamps on him.
And then I put vision, and I guess they used him in the punt return as well, which we didn't really get to see, but we saw his picks where he was returning all those, cutting back and making nice moves, gain as much yards as he could. And then for the run game, I put that he sets an edge, so like plenty of times from what I saw, where he would be sitting like near the numbers, forcing them back. Not only would he wrap up, but like someone else would get there and they'd make that tackle on him.
No.
Hey, Trevor, I got a quick question for you on Terrion.
Yeah.
And he looks like he's so good in man-to-man. How do you feel him out in a heavy zone defense? Does he look like... I was kind of like, I don't know. He just feels like a really strong man-to-man guy.
Well, I think if you look at like Nick Saban historically has always been a like pattern matching zone defense. They don't play a lot of true man unless they're locking something up backside or that sometimes in situational it'll dictate it. You saw he played man 30% of the time in his career at Alabama, which means he was playing zone 70% of the time.
Okay.
I think a lot of when you're in man match principles, it starts as zone, but everything finishes as man. So that's why you see a lot of the cut-ups. It looks like it may be zone, but because he's getting a vertical route, turns into one-on-one, so it turns into man at the end of it. So it maybe looks more like he's playing a lot more man than they're actually doing schematically. I think that's why, I was looking at it. When you look at just his makeup, I think he is extremely valuable just because I do think he can do a little bit of everything. Like he can play man, he can play zone, he played on the outside. but
killer in the slot.
he can also
too.
play. He can play in the slot. He played in the slot 39% of the time in 2023.
He would be a great slot.
So he can. We saw him blitz. We saw him tackle. We saw him cover. I think he's a modern defensive back that can fit in any scheme. That's where the Marlon Humphrey. Yeah, you know how Marlon Humphrey's sort of changed, sort of positionally with the Ravens based on what they've had. Like, okay, if they're not strong at corner, he's got to play an outside corner, and they may be playing a third safety in that nickel role. But then on years where they've had more corners, he became kind of the slot guy, and they could play 3 corners at a time. So, like, I love that about Terrion Arnold, that he's that flexible. I think that's where the Marlon Humphrey comp came into me, where I noticed, I thought that's the app part of it. And then he's smart enough to do that. My curiosity is, I know every mock, take them for a grain of salt, whatever. But somewhere I've seen him as high as pick 8 with the Falcons.
Right.
And then as low as, the back end of the first round, like pick 27-ish. What team do you think, like if you're a GM for one of these teams, what's the team that you feel like should be targeting Terrion Arnold?
I feel like he is going to go between 13 and 18 Raiders, Colts, or Jags. I could really see him with I keep nailing him to the Jaguars.
I was going to say, I think Jacksonville makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I feel like that's where he's going to go. I got guys I like a little bit better than him that I think might go before him. So, but I don't see him getting further than 20 to the Steelers. I know the Steelers had dinner with him and Kool Aid, so I can't see him getting past 20. I don't. He's too good.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think Jacksonville would be a fantastic scheme fit. They do they're kind of a base cover 3, but they do a lot of man matching principles too. And he could do a lot of different things for them there. So that would make a ton of sense actually. And they lost Darius Williams in the offseason, one of their starting corners. So, all right, Joe, who we got next?
Next guy we're looking at is going to be Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. He's 6 foot, weighs in at 195. He's got 4 years playing there with 43 games. He has 117 tackles with 49 pass breakups. He also got 6 interceptions. He's got 40% passes completed when thrown at his way. He's allowed 6 touchdowns and then was in man 34% of the time. And then for combine numbers, my guy's got a 4.33 in the 40 with a 1.51 in the 10-yard split, 38-inch vertical with 10.2 on the broad, and then he did 20 reps on the bench.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Quinyon Mitchell was sort of, I would say, not unknown, but he wasn't talked about as much until the Senior Bowl. And then he had a great Senior Bowl, and everyone was like, whoa, who's the guy from Toledo? And then the Combine. And then the Combine, it was like, whoa, this dude ran 4.3 and had 28 bench reps and jumped 38 inches. Like, all right, who is this Quinyon Mitchell guy? And then people went back to the tape and I think realized how good this guy was. To me, the first thing that I thought was the length. Like, I know he's not necessarily, a 6'3" look. He looks long on film though. He's 6 foot, but he just looks long. So then I went and said, okay, what's his wingspan? How did he measure? Like his arms are measuring, just above 31, and he's got a 76-inch wingspan. And I thought, yeah, that tracks with what you see on tape. Yeah. He has these long arms that help him make a lot of plays, even when he's not in phase on a receiver. So it lets him be like a true matchup guy. He's at the top of the screen, just off the screen against Miami of Ohio here, game last year. But like even when he's behind a receiver on this deep ball, his arms are so long that he can still reach in front without interfering, and drawing the flag, but still making the play. I saw that a lot. Those long arms really come in handy for him against longer matchups. Like even here, this is a great rep. He blocks a punt. Again, those long arms coming into play against Bowling Green this year. Out of phase, but still makes the play because those arms are so long. That was the first thing that really jumped off tape to me was those long arms.
Yep.
Tom, I know you really love this dude. Talk to me about him. What do you think?
I think he's probably the best athlete of the 6 that we're talking about today. I feel like he's going to end up being, you're always looking at projection down the road. I feel like with the right team, this guy's going to end up being the best corner of the bunch. You know, when I actually watched the film of this game where, you know, he likes to open up his hips before the receiver makes the move. And I'm like, come on, stay square. But then he flipped his hits. The guy, he might even be on here where the guy broke a post and man, he flipped his hits and still caught up and knocked it down. I mean, I know he's playing in the MAC, but man, I think this kid's going to be special. I honestly think he might be the first corner going off the board.
Yeah. I think that wouldn't shock me because of the traits and the testing. You know, the other thing that's interesting about him, he was asked to play off man coverage at Toledo nearly a third of his snaps. That was a lot of what he did there. You know, in 2023, he gave up less than 1 yard per man coverage snap. He only allowed 36% completions and no touchdowns. So he was, even though he was in the MAC, he was dominant. I mean, those stats
impressive.
tell you he was dominant. I think he's the classic man cover corner with good eyes, lets him make a lot of plays. So here's a lot of man coverage stuff from him this is against Miami. They try and turn it up on him. Once again, those arms come into play. And you can see it here on the turn. Eyes back to the ball, in phase. Here on the goal line, again, that length comes into play, but just man coverage, like he just has a lot of man coverage traits that you love to see. He's in press man here now against Texas Southern early in the year. Another play where it's just like you might as well waste it down when you're throwing at him in man coverage like that. It just he's too physical at the catch point. His arms are long. His speed, like you're not going to beat him vertically. He's too fast. And then to me, the last thing was, you know, with as much man as he played, they asked him to play, like I said, a lot of off man specifically. He didn't press as much. Specifically, I think the reason they did that is you can recognize he has really good eyes and instincts. Part of what makes him so good in off man coverage, he's just really patient. He knows that I'm fast enough. I've got recovery speed that even if you run vertical by me, I'm fast enough to recover to it. And I've got these long arms that will make that play. So he trusts that, and he sits on a lot of routes. He's kind of that like greedy, I'm going to play off man, but I'm going to get my eyes back to the quarterback and sit on this route right now. This is a great rep against Eastern Michigan. He doesn't really bail out of there. He knows, like, I'm fast. So you can run by me. I can kind of slow pedal or scooch step out of it initially and then sit on the route until you absolutely have to turn your hips. Or he can get away with opening his hips right away, like you talked about, and still making the play. But I just thought, like, one of the big things that I saw in film with him is just being very patient, seeing it, and then going and making plays. Love for him to finish that tackle, but he makes the play nonetheless. Again, 3rd and 3, understanding down and distance, I'm going to sit at 4 yards and then break because I know you're trying to run a route to the sticks. And I know if you're going to try and throw it vertically on me, I've got the recovery speed that you're not going to beat me.
56.
Like, this is a perfect rep of that. He sits on the route, but they run vertical past him, and it doesn't matter because he's so fast. I mean, look at that. He still cuts the guy off on the route. Now, again, that's against Texas Southern. You know, maybe against NFL caliber receivers, he'll have to play more technique sound, but the traits are there. And that's the big thing. Reminds me a lot of Tre'Davious White. You know,
New
obviously
Ram, right?
Tre'Davious White. New Ram, yes, the newest Ram. Coming off the Achilles, but, you know, early Tre'Davious White, is a ball hawk, but like real good in man coverage. I mean, can play some zone stuff too, but when he was asked to play man coverage, just the long arms, again, the recovery speed, being able to sit on routes. I think you see a lot of the same stuff with Quinyon Mitchell. It doesn't hurt that they both wear number 27, I think. Similar body makeup, you know, size, speed, all that good stuff. So And that's who I saw when I was watching Quinyon Mitchell. I thought I was watching Tre'Davious White, LSU Tre'Davious White playing the MAC. And that's a scary thought, which is probably why he was so dominant. Hopefully Tre'Davious White can get back to the version we're watching on film right here, post Achilles. But Tom, what do you think of the comp, and who did you have?
I comped him to Darius Slay, and I feel like the Eagles might move up to get this guy. I don't think he gets past 15 to the Colts. I think the Raiders would fall on him with the Gus Bradley defense there, but something tells me the Eagles. What didn't they have Darius Slay almost in a trade during the trade deadline? And you got is it Bradbury over there? Like I feel like the Eagles are going to try to go get this guy, and I think he would be. That's a good fit for me. Eagles, Darius Slay.
It's pretty clear Howie Roseman's been specifically trying to upgrade their secondary, so that was clearly the biggest weakness of their team down the stretch last year, and would not shock me if they're trying to upgrade there. And I do think he does a lot of the same things Darius Slay does. I think I don't, maybe the size profile, I don't know I can't remember how big Darius Slay is, but in terms of play style, I think they're really similar. Darius Slay does love to get his eyes back to the quarterback and make a lot of plays on the ball. So, Joe, what do you think of Quinyon Mitchell?
So you talked about the long arms, which I'm glad you did, because I had that written down with some question marks. I was like, the plays he's making, he's got to have long arms. I don't care what you tell me. I see it. So this is probably the first week I actually cheated and looked at your notes before we got hopped on. So when I saw that, I was like, cool, that checks out. And then he looks for the ball often. So like we saw a lot when he broke up the pass, like even if they catch it, he's going to figure out where the ball is and try to punch it out last minute. And then he was physical. So I think that kind of ties in together with that part. I don't necessarily think there was much in the run game. So I think that's where I wrote that down from.
If I have one thought or concern with him, it's that he played 4 years and only has, he has 117 tackles. We saw Terrion Arnold has played at Alabama for like 2 years and had 109. So I don't know that he's like the most physical guy in the world in terms of being a willing tackler. That was my one kind of question mark with him, my one thought when I watched his tape. But, I think the traits of being just like a man cover corner there, I think he's been hyped up as the best corner in the draft for about the last month, and I think that's for good reason. You put him on one side and just let him say, hey, take away that side of the field. Plays with good eyes. Like I said, he uses his speed to sit on routes. I know you said you don't see him getting past 15, Tom. Like that's about where mock drafts somewhere picks 11 to 20, 23 was the latest I saw him going. It does feel like he's going to be in the teens, basically. Someone in there.
Yeah,
I know you like it.
I feel like somebody will come up for him if it gets to a certain point. So yeah, I really like this guy. It'd be interesting to see, playing all those years in the MAC when he finally gets to the NFL and get some of these NFL receivers. So like going to the Eagles and having Slay and Bradbury there, like you're not asking him to come in and be the man like right away. So I feel like that'd be a good play. So I don't know.
No, and I think what really helps him is just the fact that he looked just as good at the Senior Bowl against those. That wasn't the MAC anymore. That was the best of the best, right? So I do think that gives people confidence that he'll rise to the occasion in the NFL.
He really showed up at the Senior Bowl, and that's what got everybody looking at the tape.
That makes sense.
Who we got next, Joe?
Next guy we're looking at is Cooper Dejean out of Iowa. He's 6'1", 203. He played for 3 years there with 25 games in that time. He's got 113 tackles with 19 pass breakups, 7 interceptions. They got 44% completion percentage throwing his way. He's allowed 1 touchdown and then played man 26% of the time. No combine numbers.
Combine numbers.
No.
Okay.
He's probably a pro day guy.
April 8th. He's working out, and I've been waiting for this guy to freaking work out. I can't wait. I love this
Yeah,
kid.
I am curious to see what his measurables end up being. But so this is he's Cooper Dejean is a fun prospect because people have been hyping him up, for a little over a year now as like the white corner, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of people who are like, nah, I think he's a safety in the NFL, and if you watch his film, I don't think he's a safety. He's a corner. All right, he's a real corner. Okay, so let's just get that out of the way.
Wait, I have a
I
question
will
before we continue. What
go
does
ahead.
the nickel and dime mean in terms of that? Like you have an extra dude on the edge, yeah, playing DB. Is that one of those two at least?
So generally, in most NFL terminology, the nickel means fifth DB, hence nickel, like
Okay.
five, right? So the
Okay.
fifth DB, and that's usually your slot guy. He becomes your slot kind of cover corner, right? And that,
Mm-hmm.
like, if you were going 10, 15 years ago, that guy was usually just kind of a bigger safety that was
Okay.
more athletic than a linebacker, but like still big enough to kind of play in the box. Now we've transitioned to that guy is your third corner because teams just the slot receivers are too good, right? So
Yeah.
you got to have a legit corner in there. And then the dime is generally your sixth guy. So if you're playing with, only 5-man box and then you're playing with 6 DBs, in a true, like, it's a passing situation, or, some teams have gotten creative and they can play dime even on base downs because they feel comfortable with whoever those nickel and dime
Other
guys
two
are
dudes
being
are.
capable against the run. Right.
Okay.
So, and they're kind of trying to invite you to run if that's like a game plan thing. Right. So that's what that means. But Cooper Dejean, I mean, the biggest thing that I saw with him is that one, he is a corner. Like that, there's no doubt about that to me. And I think he's best in zone coverage. He only gave up 0.4 yards per zone coverage snap, played nearly 75% zone during his career at Iowa. I think playing zone allowed him to use his eyes, and he has really good instincts, to make plays on the ball. Here you go, right here against Rutgers. I believe this is last season.
Oh
Sees
yeah,
the under
this
route,
reminds me
lets
of
it
Troy
go.
Polamalu.
Sees
Take
the
this
under
to your
route,
house.
drops. The quarterback never sees him, doesn't recognize that it's zone, thinks he has a one-on-one, and instead Cooper Dejean comes out of nowhere. And then not only has the ability to pick it, but score afterwards. Here he is in a cover 3 look, playing, off and just recognizing the hitch route, saying, I'm just going to go score real quick. Once again, cover 3, but because you're singled up backside, you really only have one guy. So it's zone, but it kind of plays out like man. Again, like being able to have those hips open, recognize this is like a palms look where he sees the out route, cuts on the out route, gets nearly another pick 6. So his first 3 plays are almost 3 pick 6s. I mean, that lets you know what kind of playmaker this guy is. And again, in zone, that's where he gets to make the most of those attributes, right? The ability to undercut routes like it is here. Does such a good job of that. The instincts in the eyes are so good. Look at this. Plays
Yeah,
through.
nice.
Yeah. On Chase Brown 2 years ago with Illinois again. And then he's not afraid to, in zone, recognize the throw and then go make the tackle. I love that part about him too. He is a physical brand of corner. Tom, you've been telling me about Cooper Dejean for like 3 months, so I need to let you go right now. I need to let
Yeah,
like the
dude.
dog on the chain. I gotta let you leave. Let's go.
Every time I do a draft, it's like, dude, I can't get a defensive player in the top 10. I want this guy to go in the top 10. I want this guy. Like, we didn't get the combine on him, but he's explosive because he was the state champ in the 100 meters and the long jump. Have you seen the video of this guy playing basketball and just dunking?
No.
Dude, check this guy. He scored 1,832 points in basketball. Look at the video. This guy is explosive. Like I said, state champ in the 100 meters long jump.
Wow.
what I think makes him special is I feel like his IQ and his instincts are going to take this guy a long way. And the fact that he can play corner down the road, he could play safety. I know he can play in the slot. He's such a good tackler. I just think he's going to end up being special. And I told you, there's a reason I told you my mock draft story about Troy Polamalu, because when you trade up for Troy, you had no idea how special he was. I think this kid is going to be special. And, you know, he's like kind of like the forgotten man right now. You see drafts, he's like in the 20s. I tell all these teams, F around and find out. Let this kid go to Detroit, Baltimore, Kansas City, San Francisco. Let that happen. Like, he needs to be in the top 15. He feels like a Colt to me. I would love for him to be a Steeler. You know, him wearing that black and gold running around makes me think of Rod Woodson, a guy that can play corner, a guy that can play safety, the guy that can do punt returns. I love this kid, and I can't wait for April 8th because, Trevor, if you're the defense coordinator for the Rams, you're like, hey, and I'm your DB coach, you're like, hey, Tom, I got to go to Florida State and check out Verse. Do you mind going to Iowa to check out Cooper? And I know that's my guy. You come back, how'd it go? Everybody's got a 4-4-1. I'm coming in with a 4-3-8. Just so it's up there. Yeah, because I want to make sure you get my guy. I feel like he's going to run in the 4-3s on April 8th. But if he doesn't, I'm coming in with a card that's got a 4-3 on it because I want my guy.
Yeah, I'm telling you. You know, I think a lot of what you said, you know, after watching this guy, my thought was, gosh, I would love for him to be a Ram.
And that's why I feel like he's a great fit for the Rams. And now Raheem Morris is at Atlanta. Like, dude,
that's another place he would
take him at 8. You're not going to miss on this guy.
He's the perfect what they did with Jalen Ramsey. They called it the star position, where he could play outside, but when you got into nickel personnel, he could slide inside to the slot. You put him as close to the ball as possible, as much as possible. Yeah, I think the next thing that I noticed on his film was the fluidity of his hips. You know, okay, this is going to sound crazy, right? But you know what he reminded me of? Like, my comp for him I'll get to, but my first thought watching him was like, this guy is like if Christian McCaffrey played DB instead of running back, was like my thought. That's like how he kind of moves like Christian McCaffrey to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what he looks like running with the ball in his hands when he's taking back a pick six or a punt return. That's what he looks like to me. So it's like if Cooper, or if Christian McCaffrey played DB, that's Cooper Dejean, right? But the hips, man, the fluidity of the hips. Look at this on the whip route, and he undercuts the whip route, pick six again. Now that's like 4 pick sixes we've watched with this kid. Just the ability to flip those hips, transition in and out of breaks. He's so good at that. He loved playing open hip stance right away because of that ability. I mean, look at this. Most DBs, if you get their hips open on that route right there, they're giving up a first down. They're not quick enough to come back downhill and break on the ball like that. I mean, that stuff is that's elite, man. I can't tell you how many guys struggle with that, and he's good at it right now. And then the last thing is, the guy's a Swiss Army knife. He can do anything. Okay, like, do you want him to, you know, play in the slot? Well, he did that on 34% of his snaps in 2022. But then in 2023, he played 87% of snaps outside. So from one year to the next, he was basically playing a different position more often than not. And then, you know, hey, he can play press. He does a really good job in press technique. He can play man coverage. He's obviously a really good zone corner, I pointed out. In addition, he brings you the value as a punt returner. I mean, ask Michigan State about it, right? They had to punt this guy to the ball with 4 minutes to go, and their heart's beating out of their chest because they're scared to death of him. They punt it to him still, and then the guy scores and beats him. I mean, by himself, basically, in that game.
Didn't late in the year Iowa try to use him on offense because their offense was just so bad because he's just a special athlete? Let's just get him on the offense. I mean,
well, I know. Maybe they did. Maybe that was 2 years ago. This last year, he kind of missed the latter part of the year because of the injury. But like, even look right here against Purdue, he's playing press man and looks pretty good doing it. You know, I think most people. I mean, look at this one. This one's against, you know, C.J. Stroud and Marvin Harrison Jr. And he breaks that pass up. Okay. That's the best receiver in the draft by all accounts. And he's like, nah, I can go toe to toe with this guy in the red zone. You punt it to him. And once again, Wisconsin, guarantee you, their coaches on the sideline are just saying, don't kick it to the kid. They're thanking Jesus that he didn't score a touchdown right there.
Yeah.
Here he is against Jackson Smith and Jigba 2 years ago. No problem. In the slot. So, I mean, the kid is so good, man. He can do whatever you ask him to do. He can play anywhere on the field. He gives you value everywhere.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I know I said he looks like Christian McCaffrey if he played DB, which that really is what he reminds me of. But the guy he, to me, kind of plays like, and here's some physicality. That's tackling Braylon Allen on 4th and 1, by the way. Who's one of the best,
Big dude.
short yardage backs you could get, and he's going in and making the tackle for loss. So, and then, hey, by the way, guess what else he'll go do? Obviously punt return, but he'll even go cover kicks for you too. Like he'll do it all, man. So he brings a lot of value. I think, like you said, the fact that the guy was and here he is covering kicks and just making a tackle before a guy even like right as the guy catches it. Unbelievable athlete. And the fact that he won the 100 and the long jump as a state champion is ridiculous. But at the end of the day, my thought with him is kind of reminds me of Patrick Peterson, like young Patrick Peterson, who could kind of play all over the field, also gave you the value in the game, but like could play man, but loved playing zone with his eyes back at the quarterback, made a ton of plays like this where, he's not only just getting the pick, but then he's dangerous in the return. Early in his career, he returned punts. As he's gotten older in his career, he's transitioned into being that kind of slot corner. Also plays like a little bit of safety. I think I could see Cooper Dejean as he gets older, similar deal. Like the guy's smart enough, athletic enough, savvy enough to do all those things. So it reminds me a lot of Patrick Peterson, just in all the playmaking ability, especially with the ball in his hands, which you just don't see that often from defensive backs. Usually those guys play offense, right? And I think for good reason, he and Patrick Peterson are two of those dudes who happen to play defense but love getting the balls in their hands because they can go do special stuff with it. What do you think of the comp? And who is yours, Tom?
I love the comp. There's a chance Steelers might, after the draft, bring Patrick Peterson back to play safety. So, yeah, I love the comp. For me, looking at projections ahead, I think we see Pro Bowl at corner. I see Pro Bowl at safety later in his career. Maybe it's because he's wearing the black and gold. I think he's Rod Woodson. I think he can have that kind of career where he's just playing, 15 years, and he's just going to be an amazing player. And it's funny that when I first looked at him, my first thought the best fit is the Rams because it reminded me of Jalen Ramsey, and I was like, dang it, Rams are picking 19, I'm picking 20. I'm like, so I like the fit for the Rams. I know they signed like 3 secondary guys, but if he's there, I would take him, dude. Oh, he'd be a beast at the Rams. So, yeah.
Joe, what were your thoughts on Cooper Dejean?
If we're being honest, I got 2 notes written down. One of them says he could stop on a dime. So you saw him when he was playing deeper off of dudes. He hits that last step and he's off to make the play on that ball. But the other one was nickel/dime package guy. I didn't really know what he was doing on defense. I'm be honest. That's why I ain't got no notes on him. I didn't really see what's going on. I know you guys both like him because I cheated, but apart from that, I was like, I mean, he was in the return game, so obviously he has value in that sense too. So whatever people do with him, I just figured nickel and dime package guy because, obviously that's why I asked the question earlier too, just to make sure I knew kind of in the right mind,
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a really good NFL player no matter what you do with him. I think he's going to help your team win is the biggest thing. Yeah, a lot of the mocks have him somewhere between picks 19 and 32. Like you said, Tom, like he's that kind of probably going somewhere in the 20s, and it's going to feel like whoever gets him is probably getting a steal.
Yeah, like put him on, like I said, Detroit, any of those last 4 teams, if he makes it to Kansas City or Baltimore, heaven forbid, or what was the other team? San Francisco. Like, Like,
Yeah.
F around and find out and let this guy slide. So,
Yeah.
I honestly believe the NFL teams, he's like the forgotten man. NFL teams know what kind of player he is. I can't see him getting past 15. So,
Yeah.
All right, next guy we're taking a look at is going to be Kool AId Mckinstry out of Alabama. He's 6 foot, sits at 199. He's 3 years there. Sorry, I don't know why I said he's. He played there for 3 years. He's got 38 games during that time with 96 tackles, 26 pass breakups, 2 interceptions. They got 36% completion percentage when thrown his way. He allowed 2 touchdowns and played man 28% of the time. And also another guy I don't got numbers for.
All right, Kool Aid, not just a cool name, also a sick athlete, really good player. I still remember when Alabama was recruiting this guy, and everyone was like, "Are they really recruiting a guy named Kool Aid?" Yes, and he's really that good. I think the thing I love about Kool Aid actually is that he is super competitive, and you can just see it in the way he plays. Like, he's never given up on a play. I guarantee you. Like, even when he's beat, he finds a way to make the play. Like right here, this first clip I'm going to show you against Mississippi State on this slant route right here, when you allow the receiver to get in, you're beat. Like that's not a great position to be in as a corner. And somehow this kid comes up with a pick. I don't even know how he did it, but he just kept playing. Like, and he made the play. I mean, he's just very competitive. He never gives up on anything. He plays tough too. Like, I love the attitude he plays with. See it here. Undercuts this route against Ole Miss. Nearly picks it in the red zone. Once again, but he was battling the receiver the whole route. You can see right here, kind of works to get back underneath him. Maybe a little tug on the jersey. Against Texas this year, another play where he's beaten, right, in the zone coverage that they're in. That guy's wide open. It's not even, depending on what they were in, might not even been his responsibility. He makes the play anyway, doing that little bit of extra. So I love the competitive fire from him. They even blitzed him, sent a zone pressure off the edge, let him go get Quinn Ewers for the to force the incompletion. But I love the competitive juice from him. You can tell he plays the position with a lot of attitude, which I really do enjoy if a corner can bring that kind of energy to your team, because when it shows up there, it shows up everywhere else generally. So, Tom, what was the first thing that stood out to you with Kool Aid?
When I saw this guy, he had been a 3-year starter. He just looks like a savvy, old school vet, smooth, patient, like he's been doing it forever. So, I think he had 16 breakups last year. Only had 2 this year because I think teams just didn't want to go up against him because he was the man coming in. Let's go test out the Arnold kid, and like we said earlier, Arnold killed it. So I think teams kind of stayed away from him. So he didn't have the year that he had previously, but man, he's just a cool customer, man. I really like. He only had 2 picks, but yeah, I like him a lot. I think he goes in the first round, late in the first round somewhere. So
he I'll get to what he did in zone coverage, but he did play a lot of press man at Alabama. Like when they did ask him to play man, he pressed, and he was very physical at the line of scrimmage. He's a really good press man.
I have that written down. Probably the best press corner in this draft, maybe.
I would argue the same. He's really patient at the line of scrimmage. Definitely does a good job with the motor mirror of the receiver's releases. Stays square, doesn't flip those hips until he absolutely has to. It lets him play all these routes well. This is against Austin, PA. Obviously gets his eyes back to the quarterback, makes a play on the football. So close, and he's upset at the end of it. But just the patience right there, like, I'm getting to move in, move out, move in, move out. Oh, by the time you're actually in your route, it's so long that I can get my eyes back because I know. Right. Against Joe Milton, who has just a rocket arm running that, he's going with that guy stride for 40 yards down the field. And like you said, cool customer, does not panic and PI at the end. He knows where the ball is. Again, plays through the hands right here. against K-State. This in the bowl game last year. I think what you said about being super cool and calm, that's part of what makes him such a good press cover corner, because he never panics. I mean, you just never see that out of him. Again, the patience against Tennessee, gets his eyes back to the ball, sees the ball's going to be wide, so now he can flip his eyes around. Boom, break down, on the slant route, staying inside, give him a little seatbelt celebration at the end, Joey. I know that's your favorite.
Yeah, it's written down.
And then
sure.
The last thing is then, okay, you have the contrast of he plays really good press man. He's also got great zone coverage IQ, right? He's another just guy that you can tell has been coached by Nick Saban, savvy vet. You said that. That was the other thing you said, Tom. Totally agree, man. Shows up in a lot of zone coverage with his ability to read quarterback eyes and understanding route concepts. Either, he can either jump a route where he knows the ball's going to, or drift underneath a deeper concept that's, quarterbacks don't see you when you do that. Teams posted an 80% negative play rate when they threw at him when he was playing zone. So that's pretty good. It's good stuff. If you're playing zone with him, that's what you want. There you go. Again, eyes back at the quarterback, drives the out route. They never saw him. They thought he was in man. He showed a press man look, was actually playing cover 2 zone. Pretty sweet. Again, the recognition and the finish. He's probably, of all the cats that kind of have that physical edge to them, he might be the closest one to what I loved about Devin Witherspoon last year.
Yeah.
In terms of the finishing, the tackling on the ball. Nobody in this class is Devin Witherspoon with that. He might be the closest one with that ability. And that makes me a big fan of Kool AId McKinstry. Reminds me of some Jair Alexander with the Packers. That ability to play press man, but smart enough to play zone, physical enough on the ball, willing tackler, really good player. Some highlights from him a few years ago. This is that that savvy, I'm in zone, I see where you're going, I'm going to drift, and you're never going to see me. But then, hey, I can go play man and just put the clamps on when you want me to do that too. I'm a willing tackler in space, no problem. I'll go tackle one of the best space players in the NFL, Alvin Kamara, and then never giving up on the play, the competitive fire. Even though T.Y. Hilton catches this, he makes sure that he's not going to be in bounds when he catches it. Never gives up on the play.
I think he stepped out.
A lot
too,
of the, yeah, a lot of the stuff that I like about Kool AId is kind of what you like about Jair Alexander in the league. Tom, thoughts on the comp? Thoughts on Kool AId?
Kool AId, he didn't get the chance to run at the combine because they found something broke in his foot. But at the pro day, he showed up, still not quite healed, and ran a 4.47. So I know. Yeah, you could see how bummed he was that he couldn't compete at the combine. But I did like the way he run. But yeah, I love Shazier Alexander. I mean, if he could be anything like Shazier, that'd be amazing. When I looked at him, he reminded me. He has the same measurables as Ike Taylor. Ike Taylor for 10 years.
Throwback.
10 years, or he was always in the right spot. He always broke up passes. Never got any picks. This guy's only got 2 picks. I don't see this guy having pick sixes. He's just going to be there where you need him to be. He's going to break up passes. He might not have the interceptions, and stuff like that. I just think he's old school, savvy, dude. I feel like he's Ike Taylor. You're going to get good 10 years out of this guy, and he's not going to mess up for you. So,
yeah, Joe, what'd you think of Kool AId?
So I feel like this is my one hater moment in this selection of people, but I guess it could kind of attest to maybe they just never threw his way for most of it. But I did think that from what I saw, he was out of position a lot of the time, or the ball was overthrown, and it was he was one of those dudes that looked incomplete, right? But the ball was overthrown. Come on, bro. You didn't do nothing. The ball was out of position. You know what I mean? So that's how I felt watching him. You did show it. He has the locked in celly or the strapped in, whatever you want to call it. And then they used him in the punt game too, as well as Terrion Arnold. And then I just said he was shifty because when he was getting the punt returns, he was hitting the cuts in and out. But for this guy, I wasn't too high on him.
Well, yeah, dude, I think you are hating a little bit. That's okay.
Yeah.
We need a little bit of hate. It can't be all positivity on this podcast. So I think Kool Aid, he's intriguing for a lot of reasons, but I think the ability to be able to mix up, hey, he can play press man, but he's smart enough to play zone. He's got instincts to play zone. He's the kind of player that I thought, like, as a defensive coordinator, it lets you be creative because he can disguise a lot of stuff, and he's proficient enough at both that you can mix up what you're doing with him, and that's always a nice tool to have in your toolbox. So I really like that part about him. Most mocks have him going somewhere in the 20s, somewhere between picks 22 and 32. I haven't seen him get out of the first round yet. It's going to be a first round pick, seems like, but just in the back half of that first round. Tom, is there a squad that you like for Kool Aid that you feel like is a good fit?
Yeah, I mean, if he can get there, I think after trading Snead, I think it'd be a nice fit. Kansas City, pair him up with my guy McDuffie that I love so much. If he can get there, with the Cam Sutton ordeal at Detroit, I think they would snatch him up pretty quickly. I think
him and KC would be fun because of all the stuff that they like to do defensively, and I just got through. You can do with him, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, if he can get there, that's the question, though. I just don't know if he can get there. So, but yeah, that'd be fun there. KC Kool Aid. Now we're talking.
What color Kool Aid they dropping at the Super Bowl, huh?
Now we're talking. Let's talk about this dude.
All right, so the next guy we got up is Mike. I'm gonna go Sainristil. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sainristil?
There you go. Something. He's 5'9", so the smallest dude we're looking at today. He weighs at 182 pounds. We got 5 years right here. We got a COVID year. He's got 30. Maybe he was hurt. I don't know, but COVID was in there. He's got 30 games during that time with 107 tackles. He's got 20 pass breakups with 7 picks. He allowed 50% completion when thrown his way, the highest we've seen so far. He's got 5 touchdowns allowed, and then was in man 30% of the time. We got in the combine numbers. Hold on, give me a sec. He ran a 4.47 in the 40 with a 1.51 in that 10-yard split. He had a 40-inch vert with 10.11 on the broad jump. He did 6.99 in 3-cone with a 4.01 in the shuttle, and then had 14 reps on bench.
All right. So the first thing that's impressive with Mikey Sainristil is the fact that he was a receiver for his first 3 years at Michigan. And then going into his 4th year there, they looked at him and said, hey, man, like, you could probably play at receiver, but we really need a nickel corner. And, like, we don't have one right now, and we really need one. So in the spring, they asked him to do it. And he was like, is it the best thing for the team? And yeah, all right, let's go. And turns out he was like one of the best playmakers in that secondary the last 2 years. All these stats are, 2 years of stats essentially on defense. The guy is, being a former receiver, had incredible ball skills, especially when you compare it with, all of his peers. He's so, versatile that he even ran routes at Michigan's Pro Day just to show up, just be like, hey, I could still play receiver too if you wanted me to. Like, I still got that in my bag. But he had 6 interceptions in 2023. He had 2 of them returned for touchdowns. Didn't have 1 dropped INT in his career. He's a ball hawk. He came up with plays in the biggest moments for Michigan. I mean, right here, not being the least of which, Michigan up two scores, little under 5 minutes to go in the national title game. Washington's driving. Basically, this pick sealed the game. He nearly takes it back for his 3rd pick 6 of the year. Like I said, those receiver skills show up. And I'm sure he wanted to finish it with a touchdown here. Didn't quite get there, but he's really savvy, really smart player. I think it said a lot that he went, did the move where he went from receiver to DB. before his redshirt junior year, and then continue with that as a senior. Helped his team win a national championship. But you can see the ball skills. Like, he makes a lot of plays on the ball that not every DB would have. I think the ability to make, just I think specifically because he used to play receiver, and then obviously the playmaking skills afterwards to turn it into 6 here against Michigan State. It's a tough game for Michigan State. Tom, what do you like about Sainristil? Because I know he's another guy that you really.
Yeah, I love this guy. The first thing I write down is just dog. I almost gave it to Arnold because he's such a good tackler, but this guy, he's a good tackler. I think he's probably the best slot corner in the draft. I think he's probably the best blitzer. I didn't really do much on him, but then I heard, some people talking about how he watched Mike Hilton tape. And I was like,
Ooh.
oh, yeah. And then he just made my comp for me. But, I heard people talking about leader, captain, watch Mike Hilton tape. And in the NFL, you need this guy. You want this guy on your team. This guy, when I go through, doing my drafts, what do you call those, simulators? And he's there in the 3rd round, I just don't even take him because it's not going to happen. This guy's for sure going to go on in round 2. And the Steelers have been looking for a slot guy. We pick 51. If that dude's there, depending on our receiver situation, I would love to have this. He would complete my defense. He really would. He's a special player. I really do like this guy a lot. Best slot corner in the draft.
I think so too. I mean, look at here he is playing zone. So I think the thing is the versatility. Again, he can do a lot given that he started as a receiver, but then became a DB corner. He did return some kicks. You can see him playing outside corner as well. He did a lot more of that during 2023 than he did in 2022. So he showed the ability to play out there as well. Obviously I showed you some true zone drops here, but he's played quite a bit of man coverage this year as well. And I think, especially locking up slot receivers, I mean, his agility and quickness and athleticism allows him to lock up slot receivers. And no, not today, right? But just, I think what you said about him being a dog too, we'll get to that part. That's kind of the last trait that I think I wanted to look at with him is the aggressiveness. And you can even see it right there. We're still showing off the versatility here and all the stuff he does. Here he is as a blitzer. He just makes a ton of plays. Like, you can do a lot with him. I think, Jesse Minter had a lot of fun with this guy. I'm sure the Chargers would love to have him, so that Jesse Minter can keep doing some of the stuff he was doing with him, because you did, like you said, he was a good blitzer too, really good at disguising it and then showing up late. Made a lot of big plays. I mean, this is a 3rd and 2, tackles the ball carrier, forces an incompletion or a fumble. I can't remember which they called there. Either way, it was a big play. And then the last thing is just that aggressiveness. He plays an aggressive brand of football that, again, it's just rare to find with a guy who's 5'9", 182 pounds, but he plays like he's 6'8". I think he has no hesitation to pull the trigger. This was like one of my favorite plays of his this past year against Rutgers. He's playing off man. They try and run the little comeback jailbreak screen, and he jumps it and picks it and then turns it into a touchdown. But just because he's just like, oh, I see what this is. I know what footsteps look like when they're running this route, and that's what they're trying to do. And I'm going to go beat him to the football, knock him to the ground, and then still break a couple tackles and go score because I'm showing off right now. And then, against Ohio State, another phenomenal play against Travion Henderson, went and knocked the dude out and stomp. Look at the hype. I love that, man. That kind of energy and passion, you can't get enough of that on your football team. Going and tackling Jalen Milroe right there in the Rose Bowl. That was a big play on 3rd down. He's trying to scramble, and Jalen Milroe, we all know how good he was in situations this year. Another play against Ohio State, that's Cade Stover. That guy's about as sure-handed as tight end as you find, and he smokes that dude, and then you blitz him off the edge, and he's going and making tackles in the backfield against Purdue. Like he does a little bit of everything, and he does it all to 100% max speed, max effort, and you just love that about him. To me, it reminds me of Kenny Moore, who's been the best slot corner in the league for probably going on 3 years now. Another guy who's 5'9", but plays like he's 6'8", right? Kenny Moore, not afraid to go tackle. And that was the biggest thing that reminded me of him, is just that Kenny Moore, he may be 5'9", but the dude plays with relentless effort and is not afraid ever to go put his face on people, but also has the ability, the ball skills and there you go, Joey. You like the celly, the tie, the suit and tie?
Classy.
Classy. But then, like I said, he still has the ball skills and the playmaking that on the ricochet right here, he'll go get to find the football and go turn it into something else, go make something out of nothing on the return. Yeah. A couple years ago. Like I said, he's been probably the best slot corner in the league for about 3 years now, I would say. He just got paid, I think, last offseason with a big-time deal.
Yeah.
And there was a reason for that. So I think he's a little bit heavier than Sainristil right now. He's in the 190 club, and I think Sainristil in the NFL and gets in the NFL weight room and all that, he'll probably be somewhere around there. But again, it reminds me a lot of Kenny Moore in the playmaking and, like you said, the dog mentality. I think I know who you're going to comp him to, so I'll let you.
Yeah, well, he made it kind of easy for me where he said he was watching a lot of Mike Hilton tape. But last year's draft, there was one guy, and we all loved him, that I couldn't wait to go see where he went and watch his year, which was Brian Branch. And, he might not be the comp, but this guy, I can't wait to see where he goes and what he does. I have the same feeling about him as I did Brian Branch last year. Dude, I can't wait to see this guy play. I comped him to Mike Hilton, but he's going to be better than Mike Hilton. He has better coverage skills than Mike Hilton. He can do the blitzing and come up and stuff the run and like Mike Hilton, but he'll be a better player than Hilton. So,
Joe, I know you like this guy too. So let me hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So what I had written down was he likes to tackle with his head on the ball. That's a classic fundamental thing you learned way back when. So I thought that was pretty cool seeing him when he was making that tackle, his face was literally on the ball. It'd go flying out somewhere. I said he had the best hands in the group. I mean, I guess it checks out that he used to play wide receiver, so that's cool.
Yeah,
that's something I learned today. And then I had written down that he's quick out of his break. I mean, there's plenty of times we see him just come flying out of nowhere and getting a pass breakup. So that's all I had for this guy. But I mean, I loved his tape. We'll see that later. I don't remember where I put him, but I do know I liked him.
Yeah. The last thing I had on him, he did have 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 26 solo tackles as a 5'9" guy this last year. So, obviously a willing tackler. So I think he instantly slides in as someone starting slot corner, day one. I think his athleticism, his toughness, the ball skills should allow him to play a lot of snaps there. Probably predominantly in a zone defensive scheme with the ability to play some man in some matchups, I think. Also, you're going to want to be able to blitz him. You do a lot of fun things with him, I think. I think his shorter size maybe prevents him from being a legitimate outside option, even though he showed he could do a little bit of it at Michigan. I think he's probably one of the better. I think he could end up being one of the better matchup slot corners in the league. I really do. A lot of the mocks, it's sneaking into round 1 maybe, or really predominantly in round 2 is a lot of what I saw. Tom, where do you like him? What team?
Oh man, ever since I've been watching him, I've been wanting him for the Steelers. Ever since Mike Hilton left, we've been putting Chandon Sullivan there. It's just been a rotation of guys, and it just hasn't been the same. And I'd love to take him at 51 for the Steelers. I think he's probably going second round. People that say he's going third round are totally wrong. In today's NFL, you need this type of player on your team, and he's just too good to be falling into the third round. I just won't believe it. So I could see maybe possibly late first round, but he's like Brian Branch last year. As soon as we got into Friday, Brian Branch, you knew was coming off the board. It could be, real early on Friday for this guy, I think.
If you ask me, being someone who paid very close attention to the Michigan football program, which guy from that team is Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter most likely to take in the draft this year? I would tell you it's Mike Sainristil. 1, Blake Corum 2.
Yeah.
I think those are the 2 guys of all the guys that they might. And I won't be shocked if they take 3 or 4 Michigan guys in this, honestly, just because that's how Jim Harbaugh kind of is. But if they were going to take one higher, I think of all the guys, to me, and like the second round, Mike Sainristil to the Chargers makes so much sense because Jesse Minter had so much fun with this kid. I could see him saying, I need to take this guy to make him part of our defense and what we're going to do in LA. So that would make a ton of sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. I see a lot of Michigan guys on the Chargers. I mean, Michigan just has their studs everywhere on that team.
A lot of guys in the draft.
Yeah.
You could definitely go any one of those O-line guys somewhere around 3 or later. Any one of the guys that played on wouldn't be crazy either. So,
all right, so last guy we're taking a look at today is going to be Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. He's 6'1", weighs in at 173. He played for 3 years there, got 30 games during that time. He's got 60 tackles with 23 pass breakups. He's got 3 picks. They got 40% completion percentage thrown in at him. He's got 5 touchdowns allowed and was in man 36% of the time. We got 4.28 on the 40 for him with a 1.59 on his 10-yard, 36-inch vertical, and then he did 10.7 on the broad.
Oof. This guy's fast. Freaky athletic.
Sure.
So, all right, Nate Wiggins, I mean, gosh, he's explosive. That was the first thing that jumped out on the tape. He's explosive in the breaks. Obviously, really quick feet coming out of the break. He's a 4.2 athlete, so he's really quick to accelerate to top-end speed, and his top-end speed is extremely fast. Here you go, tape against FAU this last year. I mean, just watch this break, especially when they go from the behind angle. And he's like he's like shot out of a cannon to the end zone. From the behind, you can really see like he's sitting on it. Oh, I see it. Oh, I'm gone. See ya. And he even waits. He dares the quarterback to make that throw because he knows how fast he is and he knows he can break on it. This is another one against Drake May in North Carolina last year. Another I'm daring you to throw this. Yeah, like I'm daring you to throw it, and then I'll break when the ball's gone because I know I'm that good. So very explosive in the breaks. Oof. Flip that dude. Probably likely injured him against Notre Dame. Again, another just explosive break against NC State. So he's one of those dudes that you kind of figure when you watch the tape, like, oh yeah, he's going to look amazing in the shirt and shorts. He's going to be the combine warrior for sure. And not to say that in a negative way, but just like you can shows up in Pats, so you know it was going to show up in shirt and shorts. Tom, what do you think of Nate Wiggins?
When I saw him come into the combine at 173, I immediately thought of who was the Reds? Forbes, right? That went to the Redskins last year.
Yeah, Emmanuel Forbes.
Yeah. And real quick, I have to tell you, when I started looking at Nate Wiggins, I couldn't help thinking of Forbes before it. And you remember how Christian Gonzalez just was falling, and we're like, wow, how is this happening? He's just so good. And then all of a sudden Forbes gets, and my reaction was the same reaction from something about Mary, where the dad goes, how did you get the baseball? Next to that shock of like, how does that happen? Like,
yeah,
and then all of a sudden you're bringing in the the wife to take a look at it. You're bringing in the police officer through the window, and then the fire department comes in, and we're all just kind of laughing at him, like, you know. So that was just my reaction last year. So when I went in to look at his tape, I was like, this is Emmanuel Forbes all over again. But dude, this dude looks like a lockdown corner. His closing speed, the game I watched was because it was Drake May and it was Tez Walker. I wanted to watch that, and man, every time Walker gave him that telltale sign of what he was going to be cutting his route off, man, boom, the burst, and then watching him chase down that the run play and knock the fumble out. I'm like, dude.
Oh yeah, we'll watch that one. Yep, but I've got it.
For me, I like my cornerbacks to tackle, and we talked about that before. So I mean, I worry about his size. So against physical players, him coming up and stopping the run. And the crazy thing is, when I looked at him, he looks so long and lengthy. Of the 6 players we're talking about, he's got the shortest arms, which was crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like Sainristil has longer arms than him at 5'9". This guy's what, 6'1", almost 6'2".
Yeah.
So I mean, he's not for me, but I was really impressed with his tape. I mean, the dude looks like he could be a lockdown corner, but just don't ask him to do much more than that. So I do like him though. You know, if Philadelphia doesn't trade up, I see Philadelphia. He'd be good. Nice. I feel like Philadelphia's taking a corner. They could probably let this guy fall to him, and they take him at 22. So
yeah. Well, I think if you're looking for just a straight up man cover corner in this draft, then Wiggins is your flavor. That's the guy you want. I mean, he played man on 53% of coverage snaps in 2023. He's the only guy in the stratosphere of more man than zone. And he has that rare combination of I'm 6'1", but I run 4'2". And that's kind of, if you've got that, you're kind of the perfect man cover corner. I mean, this is all his stuff against South Carolina, Spencer Rattler. He looks like he's like, dude, what was that? I think this is Xavier Leggett. And he's looking at this dude like, dude, I don't even know why you guys tried me. Here he is against Florida State, Jordan Travis, obviously Johnny Wilson, and breaks that pass up again, sitting on that route. You're in the box. I think that's what that is.
Oh, okay. Different interpretation.
Another one, again, breaking up a pass against Drake May and Tez Walker, North Carolina. Back to South Carolina. Again, the break, it's so crazy, but they played him in off man, press man. He did a little bit of all of it, and man, he was really good at every bit of it. North Carolina struggled against him. Tez Walker struggled to get open against him, and it was like seatbelt, strap in the whole game. The last thing then is the transitions. Like, he is really good at flipping those hips, turning it on and running. This is the play you were referencing against North Carolina where he's in man coverage and then he realizes like, oh, the pass me, I'm going to flip and run. Now
Walker even held him.
Yeah, he's way behind.
Right there too, and then strips it. That was crazy.
And then, makes the play right before the goal line, stripping it. This is like one of the most impressive plays I saw of any corner on any film this year. Like, I was like, whoa, I need to find a way to get this
University of Miami on a play. The guy, he has no quit.
Yeah. And then again, the transitions, when anyone tried to run, he said, like, you're not going to be able to beat him vertical. He's just the fluidity of the hip flip plus, again, this against Tez Walker, locked him up, man. Tez Walker did not have a good game against them because Nate Wiggins was just locking him. He's too fast, and he flips those hips too well. His transitions are incredible. He stays square for so long. You're just not going to be able to beat him over the top. So it makes it hard. When you know you have no threat of beating it vertically, he knows you won't beat me vertically. Even there, the recovery speed, the catch-up speed against Miami to knock that ball out, you can tell he's kind of playing a trail technique and then still recovers. And then once again, against Florida State, another play vertically, flips those hips and runs, transitions really well. So to me, he looks like thinner JC Jackson. But like similar play style of just like, I'm going to let you go play man cover. And we learned with JC Jackson, right, that doesn't work everywhere. Like, you got to be in the right scheme. Brandon Staley wants to play a lot of like man, disguise zone, split safety coverage looks. And JC Jackson's good when you just say, hey, go play man. And I think that's who Nate Wiggins is. Like, just go play man. Go play man coverage. Go play their best receiver and just lock them up, dude. That's all. We're not going to ask you to think too much. We're not going to ask you to tackle. We're just going to go ask you to play man coverage, lock the other dude up. Don't let him catch the ball. That's when JC Jackson's at his best. That's what I think Nate Wiggins is. And JC Jackson, when he returned to New England last year, which is what all this film is from, is when he was at it. I mean, that's when he had his best. You know, he was just so much better than what he did in LA with Brandon Staley, because he just, I don't think that's the kind of corner he is, what Staley and the Chargers asked him to do. And so I think Nate Wiggins, it's going to be very important he gets drafted by the right team, honestly. That will just let him be him and just let him go play man coverage. He needs to go to a man heavy scheme, because I think that's.
What team would that be for you? Because I struggle with him, where to put him.
I think, you know, I'm trying to think of going through the Rolodex of teams right now that I mean, the thing that's nice about that is if you play for the right DC, they understand who you are and they know they can always lock you up and play zone on the other half of the field if they want to or whatever. Honestly, Belichick would have been the perfect coach to have him. But, you know, obviously Belichick's not in the league anymore. You know, I think of maybe Fangio would do a good job. Fangio does like to play a lot of man, so I could see that. Yeah, I think Fangio and Philly wouldn't be the worst fit for him. They could use a guy who could just go play man coverage. And Fangio does like traditionally to play a lot of man. Or, you know, I don't think Denver would take him because they have other needs. But like if you paired him with Pat Surtain and just said, we're just going to have the two best man cover corners in the NFL, the combination, it would be pretty nasty. Obviously, like I said, Denver's probably not looking to take a corner at 12, but that would be pretty fun combo. Who did you have for a comp?
I really struggled with this comp just because he's so light, but I found a guy that ran a 4.29 that had hit his sight, but he was just heavier. I had a DRC, Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie. Yeah, I really struggled with this comp, but that was the one guy I came up with.
You know, another guy, this is kind of old school, but just the thought that popped into my head as we were Philly, kind of reminds me a little bit of Nnamdi Asomugha.
Oh,
like just let him go play man coverage, baby.
Yep.
Best dude. That was something that popped in my head just now off the jump. Joe, what do you think of Nate Wiggins?
I guess I didn't really write down much. I guess I had
roaring review, man. You love this guy.
I guess that's what it comes down to, right? But I had that he loves talking. I mean, there's plenty of plays after the play he would be up in someone's face. So I guess he plays with an attitude to him. We could say I had the punch written out where he punched the ball out of the 2. I thought that was really impressive. I thought I didn't write it down, but it is right there. I said he has good hand fighting, so when you showed the film from J.C. Jackson with Stefan, that made perfect sense. And then, yeah, that's all I got from
him. Lot of stuff. Second half of round 1 is what teams do value this kind of corner. They do love having the man coverage guy, like feeling good about just locking someone up on one side of the field. That's why Emmanuel higher last year than we expected. I do think that it's a scheme thing, but like some teams value this kind of corner, and it really is. That's why I said corner more than any other position. I feel like is about what are you doing schematically? How do you want your corners to play? Do you want the well-rounded guy who can play zone, man, will tackle all that, or do you want the guy who's just going to go shut the other team's best receiver down? Like and not do much else. But that one thing he's doing is so valuable that you're good with it, Right. So it just kind of depends on what you value. But I could see him sneaking into the teens because he is probably the best, just pure man, put him on an island corner in this draft. That's what he does.
Yeah. If Forbes could do it and get drafted for Gonzalez, this guy certainly could, because I think he's better than Forbes. So,
I think so too. I think
he
so
went
too.
17, right? So
yeah. All right. I think it's time. It's time for rankings, boys. This is what we got to do. As the guest, Tom, I'll let you choose where you want to go, first, second, or third.
I'll go first. It's your guys' show. I'll let you finish it out.
All right. Go ahead. Take it away.
Just because I think he's a special player. I think his instincts are going to take him a long way. I got Cooper number 1. I think Mitchell, when it's all said and done, he's probably going to be the best corner playing press and zone. Terrion, just the year that he had, he's a dog just like Mike is. But man, getting 6 picks, he really showed up this year. I saw an interview with I can't think of his name. Anyways, so I got Terrion 3. Nate Wiggins, I have 4 just because he looks like a lockdown guy. And like you said, every team needs somebody like that or could use somebody like that. And Kool AId, just because he looks like he's been doing it forever. I think he goes in the first round. I got him as 5. Mike, I only had 6 just because he's probably a slot corner in the NFL, and teams might not value that in the first round, but I think he'll be valuable for any team. That's why I can't wait to see where he goes. I'm going to follow him and watch him like I did Deion Branch last year. I can't wait to see where he goes and follow him. I love Mike.
Jody?
Yeah, I'll go next for sure. So I got Terrion Arnold at 1. I mean, I think he had the best film all around. As terms from what I saw, I mean, granted, I don't watch much college football, so you guys could probably rail on me later about it. But the next dude I have is Mike Sainristil. Obviously, he's a smaller dude, but the 40-inch vert alone tells you he could play with the big dogs. You know what I mean? He's going to go up for the ball. And I mean, I'm sure understanding the routes people are running, being from the wide receiver position first, that definitely helps his tape. Next guy I got is Nate Wiggins. I mean, when I saw that all these dudes were pretty much first rounders, I thought that was pretty crazy, because I felt once I got to 3, I was like, it seems real thin to me. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just a hater, but I had him there. And then at 4, I went Quinyon Mitchell. I think it was tough just considering he went to Toledo. There ain't much film for 1. And then 2, it's like the competition really isn't there. Obviously, he has good fundamentals and like the things he does. But that's the question mark for him, is just in terms of the competition there while he was there for 4 years. And then I went Kool AId Mckinstry. Yeah, my guy's got a cool name, but everything I talked about was him in the punt return game and him with his celebration. So I didn't have much to say about him. And Cooper Dejean was very similar. I had his punt return game stuff written down, and I think he would be more valuable in the nickel or dime, as I had written down. So I'd love to be wrong on these things, because I would like to be like, yeah, Joe, you don't know ball, bro. You're tripping. You don't know the defensive side of the ball.
Oh, man. No, I mean, like I said, I think so. First and foremost, I think all these dudes are really good. I think it's really about what you value. So for me, like if I'm taking one of these guys, I'm taking Terrion, because I think I know what I'm getting with him in terms of he's versatile. I can do a lot with him. I know he's not going to be afraid to tackle. I know I can let him go play man. I can play zone. I think he's the most well-versed, well-rounded guy in the group, because his tape shows the most of like him doing more things.
Mm-hmm.
I can put him in the slot. I can put him outside. I think he's going to have just a long career. And I don't think he's one of the few guys that I don't think it really matters who drafts him, because I think no matter what you want him to do, he's going to do it well.
A plug and
So
play.
that's why he's my favorite guy in this crew. Number 2, I've got Cooper Dejean. I think for similar reasons to Terrion Arnold. I mean, just playmaker. He can do a little bit of everything. He can play press man. He's really good in zone. He gives you the return value. He'll play special teams. Like, he'll do it all, man. Like, I really like that kid. Third, I got Kool AId Mckinstry, the Alabama pedigree, being, kind of having to be like the guy for a couple years there, and knowing, that teams knew how good he was, trying to scheme him up and still having pretty good production. And I just think he's probably the most polished of all the guys. He feels like he's the one who's most ready to just go play right now. Number 4, I got Quinyon Mitchell. I think if you're looking for the man coverage guy who could still play a little zone, to me, he's the best one. I do, yes, have the similar questions about, like, hey, did we overreact to one Senior Bowl week and some combine numbers versus, the plethora of tape at Toledo? And wondering, does the skill set translate against bigger, tougher competition? I also have questions with him about tackling. 5, Nate Wiggins, guy's 173 pounds. That's really what it comes down to for me. He's also not a guy who really looks like he is particularly interested in tackling people. So now, again, if you're looking for the closest thing to the shutdown corner, the island corner in this draft, it's Nate Wiggins. So you may have him 1 on your board if you're like, that's what we want. Me personally, I kind of like a guy who's going to tackle some other things too that I can be multiple with. And then lastly, Mike Sainristil. I mean, the big thing for him, he's 5'9". And so that's, I couldn't really justify putting him any higher than this. For most people, the 6th best corner in the draft is high for the 5'9" kid. But I just think he's a really good football player. He's going to do a lot for your team. He's going to help you win ball games at any expense or cost to himself. And you can't get enough of those guys in the NFL. So to me, he's super valuable in what he's going to do. And like you said, Tom, everyone needs that slot corner. And I think he could be one of the better ones in the league. So I think that puts him at least in that 6th spot. Guys who just kind of missed the list here: Ennis Rakestraw Jr. from Missouri, Kamari Lassiter from Georgia, Kalen King from Penn State, and Josh Newton from TCU. I also know a lot of people like the kid Tampa from Iowa State. Didn't quite come closer to some of these other guys for me. But a lot of good corners in this draft. I think the more you look at it, round 2 should be full of O-line, receiver, corners. Like those, if the 2nd round was just all those dudes, everybody would be getting great value because so many good ones that I think are going to get into round 2 that might have really, really good potential to help your team right away. So this corner class is deep. It's really deep. It may not be as top heavy, I think, as the O-line or receiver groups, but it's just as deep, maybe deeper than those groups. So I think you're going to get, if someone's drafting a corner in round 2, you're probably getting a really good one, honestly.
Excuse me. All right, so Uncle Tom, you got anything to plug that you got going forward?
No. I really just want to ask Trevor a question.
Hit me.
How does it feel to do all this work on all these players coming out and to have a 1st round pick? Doesn't it feel good?
You know what's funny is I think when I do the evaluations and all of this, I am generally not thinking about like the Rams.
I know, but when it comes down to the draft night, you're like, okay.
No, I think I'll feel good when they pick whoever they pick, but I'm not as into like the who are we going to take as much as I am just like, all right, who's good? Who do I like? Who do I personally feel good about? Like, I mean, if you ask me who do I want the Rams to take right now today, I'd tell you Jared Verse is my guy. I want Jared Verse above anything else. I think that dude is the best edge rusher in the draft by a lot. I think it's that guy for sure. I think especially losing Aaron Donald in the offseason, that'd be the guy I'd want them to take. However, if it wasn't that, man, I wouldn't hate one of these receivers if you're trading up. I wouldn't hate one of these tackles if you're trading up. If you're staying put, then I wouldn't hate one of these corners we just talked about. There's a lot of different directions they could go in.
Oh, yeah.
And I haven't really taken the time to think, like, what is Les Snead going to do? And it's also kind of hard because the guy hasn't had a first-round pick in 7 years. So no one knows. 8 years, I think, actually. So no one knows what he's going to do. He doesn't have a track record that you can go and look at to say, like, oh, what does he do here? Like, I mean, for all I know, they're going to trade the pick on draft night for an established NFL veteran that's actually, already pretty good. So I really don't know what they're going to do. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it. Right. But, I mean, I'm sure whoever they draft, I'm going to probably feel pretty good about because
I have a feeling come draft night, after all this work you guys have put in together, the juices are going to be flowing because, wow, we have a seat at the table. Like, let's go. I want to eat. I want to eat.
It's funny. This draft, I'm more excited for the second round than anything else because I think there's just so many good players that are going to go in round 2 that are going to be like
more teams hit in the second round than they do in the first round. Second round's fun, man.
Yeah, I just think there's so many good. Like, I'm ready to see where, and like, some of these corner, like if Mike Sainristil falls to round 2. Maybe a couple of these running backs sneaking around too. Like, the tight end. I'm really excited to watch who drafts Ben Sinnott from Kansas State.
Mm-hmm.
He's such a versatile piece, and like no one's talking. Obviously, he's not a first, but I saw a lot of like buzz about him in the last week, and now I'm like, oh, that was a guy I really liked, and now he's sneaking into the second round in some of these mocks. I'm like, oh, maybe he goes round 2. So I just get excited to see. Because it feels like you don't win Super Bowls with your first round picks. You win Super Bowls with those second, third, fourth round picks. And then every so often, that 6th or 7th round pick, those guys end up being the reason why teams win Super Bowls. So I feel like as I've gotten older in doing this stuff, to me, that's where it's the draft actually, when everyone else is turning off the TV because they're like, okay, all the big names are going. I'm excited to watch like who's getting taken in round 2, 3, 4, 5. So for instance, my guy from last year, the Simpson with the Ravens got picked in the 3rd round. And he was my favorite linebacker in the draft.
Oh yeah.
And then they let Patrick, and he didn't play at all this year. And it was like, dang, maybe I was wrong about that one. But then they let Patrick Queen walk in free agency, and I'm like, oh, watch. Simpson's going to have a huge year next year for the Ravens. Watch.
They took because they knew. They knew. You just signed Roquan Smith, so you're not going to sign Queen. So they were prepared for that one. Yeah, that could be pretty fun.
Like Ravens fans, if you're listening, that's your guy. Simpson's going to break. Don't worry about losing Patrick Queen. You got Simpson, bro.
In one game that one of them didn't play. It was crazy. Or like he got maybe like they sat their dude for the last week of the season or something. He balled.
Yeah, I'm telling you, he's going to be good. And I still am feeling good about that take a year later that he was the best linebacker in that draft. So, meanwhile, Jack Campbell went in the 1st round to the Lions. And I'm like sitting over here telling you that this guy who's a 3rd round pick with the Ravens who didn't play at all last year is going to be the best one when it's all said and done. But I'm telling you, he is. But yeah, so I'm excited to watch it play out. Obviously, it'll be interesting to see what Les Snead does with the 1st round pick for the first time in forever. So I am pretty excited to watch it.
Right on. Well, if I can make it down to Texas, we'll talk about that later. Maybe I got the whole week off. I take the whole week off for the draft. Maybe I'll do that little 9-hour drive so I can see your reaction to a 1st round pick for the Rams.
Man, that'd be a good time. Well, we appreciate you coming on. It was awesome. I think we got great stuff today. And we only have a few more weeks. It's finally draft month. We're in April. We only have a few more weeks. Next week, we've got safeties. And then the week after that, we got our last group to evaluate. We always save it for last, the quarterbacks. Everyone's favorite group. Very excited to talk that. We will confirm today. We'll have another special guest for that quarterbacks episode. We'll keep it a secret, though, until let you guys find out. So keep listening. Subscribe.
I appreciate you guys letting me come on. You guys really have helped me with my draft. There's players that I'm putting the first round that I probably wouldn't have. So you guys are a great listen. I hope you guys find more followers. You guys really put out some good content. So props to you guys. I appreciate you for letting me having me come on. I really enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for pulling up. Thanks for the words.
Yeah,
Means a lot.
yeah. Anything I can do. I love my dudes.
Let's go. All right, Joe. Toss it to our guy.
Oh, I was gonna have Uncle Tom say it. Let him take us out.
Oh, what's his name?
Ray Ray.
Tell our guy, Ray Ray.
Ray Ray. Yo, Ray Ray, take us out, brother.